Hi, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder. I'm known as a business valuation expert and best-selling author. And this is the show where we go beyond the data to explore the people, the stories, and the insights that really drive business success. Thank you for joining us today. They say in life there are two things that are certain, death and taxes. Can't help you on the death aspect, but today we're going to try to figure out how to mitigate some of the tax aspect. And I'm pleased to welcome Brian Balduzzi, who is a private client services attorney at Faegre Drinker. Brian, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
Thanks, Dave. It's wonderful to be here. Long-time listener, first-time attendee. I'm a private client attorney at Faegre Drinker. Started my career in Boston. Worked for a mid-sized accounting firm before moving to a mid-sized law firm, and then took a sabbatical, I say, to get my MBA because of the business owners that I work with, understanding the numbers behind some of the words that I use on the estate planning documents is just as important, and the cohesive estate planning is an important aspect of my practice, and collaborating well with individuals like Dave on the business valuation side, accountants, other attorneys, as well as financial and wealth advisors. I practice in Philadelphia and Princeton, New Jersey, and New York at the moment. And my clients are largely business owners, corporate executives, entrepreneurs, and those with inherited wealth, and really anyone that looks to plan, prepare, and protect for their family.
Well said. And I appreciate what you did there with the little behind the numbers pop. It didn't go unnoticed, so thanks for that. And yeah, we're going to unpack all of this for everybody that you just described there as your constituent client, and anybody who's tuning in, even if they're not a business owner. There's going to be great value that they're going to get from this conversation. I know it. So let me take it from the top, Brian. A lot of people think that estate planning is only for the ultra wealthy. And why is that one of the biggest misconceptions that you encounter?
Such a great opener question, Dave.
Well, I've got so many more for you, brother. Hang with me.
I'm ready. So estate planning, I think of to prepare for the inevitable, in that, as you said, everyone's going to die. Folks might become incapacitated. You may or may not have a business that you're looking to transition. I don't like the word estate because I think people think of grandiose lawns and fancy mansions, McMansions. But everyone has assets that they want to determine who they go to, or they have certain decisions that need to be made about their personal and financial lives that they would like to designate who makes those decisions. And without good estate planning, without good wealth and business succession planning, the state has a plan for you. So I say you can either plan to plan or you can plan not to plan. And I talk with many clients about what is the default if you do not have a will? What is the default if you do not have a power of attorney for financial decision making or for medical decision making? And so even someone as young as 18, I was just talking to someone last night, and their child just turned 18 and is thinking about colleges and is really excited to leave home. And I said, they really need a power of attorney. They really need a medical directive, because now that they're 18, they can make all the decisions you as parent cannot. And then I talked to someone that's 95 and maybe has had multiple wills over their lifetime, and they're looking to make some last changes. And we don't know when the last ones will be, but we hope that they're well prepared and well protected so that their wishes are memorialized, so that someone can scoop in that they've designated to make the decisions that they have laid out for them when they're no longer able to make them, Dave.
Yeah, I like a couple things you said there. First of all, when you use the word estate, I think you're right. It sort of has a connotation that you've got to be ultra high net worth. So I appreciate you debunking that. And your point about if you don't have a plan, the state does. I just want to share a quick story with the audience here that I just landed a new client who came to me because her husband passed unexpectedly and without a will. He owned a business, and the state won't let her do anything with the business until the business is valued. But we can't value the business unless she has access to financial records and documents. And it's a absolute quagmire, catch-22. So yeah, do the planning. So moving along here, Brian, besides the deciding of who gets what, which I think we all understand, what's really the purpose of the estate plan besides dividing up assets?
So again, I think the decision makers is critically important. I work more and more with families that are becoming increasingly, um, I don't like the word complex. I don't even like the word blended, but they just have nuance to them, Dave, right? And so it might not be your eldest child is your executor for X, Y, and Z reasons. Maybe they're not in the business. They don't understand your assets. Maybe they live halfway across the country. Maybe they have their family of their own, and you just don't want to burden them with the estate administration and trust administration process. So I think about appointing the right people in the right roles as one of the table stakes conversations to have as part of the wealth planning conversation. And then I think for some clients, taxes are important and mitigating or understanding what taxes might be owed. But then I also think about the critical role of trust planning because as we have more and more divorces, we have more and more uh, creditor lawsuits, threats of lawsuits, risk of liquidity events for the negative, that making sure assets are protected for future generations. And if it's important, creating dynastic wealth, if they are of that wealth, or deciding when enough is enough. And maybe we'll come back to that concept because it's a recurring theme for my clients and
Yeah.
conversations in conjunction with charitable planning and the like. Um, but not only deciding who makes decisions, but once you've decided how to distribute assets, into what buckets will you distribute them? And some of that is tax driven, some of that might be more financial planning and emotional and psychological driven. And so I say that I'm a part time therapist, and I enjoy that role with my clients in unpacking all of the nuances of their family, of their business, of their assets, and of their goals. And I call them legacy goals for their family long term.
Yeah, and I want to tap into that therapist component here in the psychology of the estate plan. Um, so you sort of alluded to it, but I want to unpack it a little bit deeper. So, in your experience, Brian, how does having a plan change the way your clients actually feel about their future or maybe their family's future?
It's clients are very reluctant to think about their first estate plan. I find I just met with clients that are in their late 40s and have kids in their teens now, and they said, we just haven't done an estate plan, and we know that we need to because we know the kids are still minors and they need guardians, but we can't do it. Like we think we're too young to even put something on place for who an executor might be, and they feel like they're going to get hit by a car or get struck with some terminal disease as soon as they sign on the dotted line for their estate plan. Uh,
The
and
cause and effect component, right?
Correct. So there's some psychology to just getting to the table, to talking to someone about the estate planning. And maybe it's the same thing with talking with someone about business succession planning as well. They feel like, well, once I talk with someone about that, I'm 2 feet out the door, or at least 1 foot out the door. And they don't want to think about that yet. But there's so many critical components that if you start the estate planning process early, if you start the business succession conversations early, you have more options, I say, in terms of what you can do. Maybe it is gifting away into a trust earlier. Maybe it is understanding tax implications and using insurance to mitigate some of that tax risk for your family. Similar to business succession planning, you have more options in terms of how you can structure the business um, and how you can think about options for succession the earlier you go. Whereas waiting until the last moment and you have an offer to sell, maybe you're more likely to take that offer than explore other options. So I think there's some psychology of getting individuals to the table, talking with them about their estate plan. But to your question, once they've done it, I feel like there's some relief. And this is why I talk about getting the core documents in place your will, sometimes a revocable living trust, a power of attorney, and a medical power of attorney at least, and then layering on complexity. Maybe that's delving into a business. Maybe that's looking at different type of insurance and maybe an insurance trust, or maybe it's other irrevocable trust planning or just gifting strategies for you to let others enjoy uh, the bounty of your wealth while also mitigating maybe your taxes if you were to die, and otherwise feeling good about when enough is enough and when your loved ones might need some assistance, some of your funds earlier rather than at your death. So I think there's some psychology of
Yeah.
continuing these conversations, getting comfortable that this is for everyone's well-being as well as security, right? I think of myself almost as risk mitigation, risk management of sorts, that there's a plan in place should the unexpected happen, Dave.
Yeah, and to your point, giving while you're still on this side of the ground, it can bring a lot of joy. So there's I forget what the mantra was, but one of my neighbors mentioned that they prefer to do it while they're up here rather than down there, and it just brought them more pleasure to see their kids being able to benefit from it rather than wait until they croak. Um, we've alluded to a lot of the disaster scenario here, but I want you to get graphic with folks here for a moment. And when a business is the owner's largest asset, what complications happen if there's no plan? I alluded to one when I was telling you about this new client, but what have you seen, and what should we be thinking about?
So even when someone has a plan, it doesn't always guarantee that it's a good plan. So I recently had a client that came to me, and they have a real estate empire, and they had a good will, but it didn't take into account that the business was the largest asset, was illiquid, and that there might be taxes owed. Also, they have a blended family and thinking about the nuances of planning for a blended family, in that someone other than the beneficiary or initial beneficiary of the estate, maybe they're what's called the remainder men, could actually be running the business. So they're putting the sweat equity into something that someone else will get the income from and get to enjoy during their lifetime. And the new owner, call it remainder beneficiary, doesn't inherit until the first beneficiary dies. And so there's so many nuances, right? Talking through with the family about how we transition that wealth, how is it planned for, um, what are we going to do if taxes are owed on the assets because of how the plan was structured. When we have illiquid assets, do we need to sell? Do we need to take a loan out? Was there any life insurance? It's actually forcing the next generation or those that are left behind to think about being better planned for themselves, which is thinking about life insurance, thinking about being well diversified and well planned, having sufficient assets, talking with family members about the roles that they're going to play, making sure everyone's comfortable with what the plan is. I think communication is really important. And where it really breaks down, Dave, is where there's a haphazard plan, right? There's a will, but it doesn't do any real business succession planning. It doesn't work in concert with maybe any operating agreements or shareholder agreements. Um, there's not consideration for who the remaining owners are and whether they want new blood coming in to run the business through ownership succession, or whether there should be some buyout provisions or some mechanism for right of first refusal, the like, that preserve the business, but otherwise get liquidity out to those that are the loved ones of the decedent. So I think there's a lot of nuance here, Dave. I think there's a lot of conversations that we have. There's tons of war stories of what goes wrong. But as someone younger in his career, I'm seeing those war stories. I'm experiencing them as they come to me for better planning. And then I'm starting better planning with clients that are coming to me with a small business or a business that's been run for a few years, but have a longer pipeline, hopefully, until death mortality gets them. Um, and I think communicating, updating a business plan, working in concert with the business as an operation can really help for continuity purposes. So there aren't fire sales, there aren't the wrong people running it, and so that there isn't animosity among the owners and the loved ones or among the loved ones.
Yeah, man, You couldn't have said it any better. Folks listening, you've got to have a plan in place to protect yourself. Brian, I want to talk to about one of my favorite topics, which is business valuation. And I work with a lot of estate planning attorneys, as you know, in helping clients in valuation matters around the estate planning. Sometimes as they're planning, sometimes after they're deceased, what have you. Um, where does valuation fit into a solid estate strategy, and when should that conversation actually start?
It depends on the asset. It depends on the client goal, Dave. But I think someone should always know what they're worth, and whether that means what the business is worth, whether it means understanding how a collectible or real estate is valued. That helps me plan better for them, especially when there are taxes involved, whether it's on the capital gains tax, whether it's on the estate or inheritance tax. Knowing what something is worth and knowing today, as we're planning what it is worth and getting an updated valuation regularly, right? Or as there are substantial changes to the business or to a piece of real estate or to a market where it could be bought or sold, right? So business valuation, I think of as what is the price that a willing buyer and seller would pay with no compulsion to sell. Obviously, if the buyers or the sellers change, or if the circumstances for that asset change, we need an updated valuation. And so this helps me think about gifting strategies when we're trying to remove that from a client's taxable estate, whether we're looking to transfer that to loved ones today, knowing what the gift tax implications of that are, or whether there's any sale components that we can do, part gift, part sale, or even determining for a business if there's any insurance on the business owner's interest, right, that it's valued correctly, right? And that was the Connolly case a year and a half ago or so, where everything went sideways because they didn't update what the value of the business was. And it didn't work in concert with the documents and the plan. And so the family ended up owing a lot more money and really went sideways in terms of the planning, the business succession.
Yeah. Valuation is absolutely imperative, and I don't say that because that's what I do for a living. I've seen some of the horror stories where it goes sideways, as Brian just alluded to. Um, Brian, I want to talk to you more about the legacy component here of the estate plan. And I know many of my clients say one of their biggest concerns is leaving a legacy that reflects their value. It's not really just about the transferring of assets or money. How do you help them think through that?
You go back to the psychology, being a
Yeah.
part-time therapist, Dave, really thinking through and talking with clients about who is important to them. I use the term chosen family, and I've taken that from my work with the LGBTQ community. But I've seen that transcends to other communities, other clients, because of the importance of not just thinking about descendants, but who else do they want to benefit from their estate? Who else are they providing for? So I just met with clients that are in their 70s. They're actually still supporting the husband's brother. And so if they were both to pass, they want to make sure that the husband's brother continues to be protected and planned for. They don't want to have to rely on their children or grandchildren to provide for their uncle or their great uncle, but they want to bake that into their estate plan. And so I think the values of who is among your chosen family is critically important. Sorry, that's going to screw up our audio. We can edit that out
Oh,
later.
good. That's the first time anyone's ever sneezed on my program in more than 300 episodes. So,
Wow. Okay, I
gesundheit.
can be for many reasons. Wonderful. But back to my point, thinking about the chosen family, thinking about the values that people have. Maybe it's a charitable cause. Maybe they're thinking about a donor advised fund or a private family foundation as part of their legacy. But I think communicating those values, not only in the documents that they draft, but in the life that they lead and in the conversations that they have with their loved ones. So I don't think of estate planning as static documents. I think of them as conversation starters, right, for what is important to a family. And part of that legacy, candidly, could be dynastic wealth. And I know that has negative connotations for some individuals, but for many clients, thinking about providing not only for their children if they need it, but any grandchildren or future descendants if they need it, right? Can provide a peace of mind, as we were talking about, Dave, earlier, but can also reinforce values. So if education is important, making sure that dynastic wealth is established, trusts are established, so that money isn't squandered on other, let's say, necessities, but sometimes wants rather than education. And so a trust can help memorialize that it is the grantor's wish, it's the decedent's wish that education be prioritized, that distributions be made first for educational purposes for any children and grandchildren, and then maybe secondarily for any other wants and needs of those beneficiaries. And so I think these documents help memorialize, help communicate those wishes, help ground or align the family with what is important to them. And that can be really powerful in providing peace of mind for one, the testator, but two, for those that they leave behind, understanding how to use this wealth in a way that helps support as well as memorializes those that have left them. So I think of my own father. He died when I was 19, and I think about his legacy and how I lived through that, and how the conversations that I have, as well as how I've used his wealth for good or accordance with our family values, as helping to really lead on his legacy, remember him in a very positive light. And I hope that message resonates with others with their own planning.
Yeah, I'm sure that it will. And thanks for sharing that story. That hits home. You've touched on the idea that there are a lot of advisors that are working with clients when you start to think about estate matters. And one of the things I always tell my clients is you need a quarterback to make sure everybody's talking to one another. But let me ask you, how can the attorneys, the valuation advisors, the wealth advisors, the accountants all work together better to protect the clients and really ensure a smooth generational transition?
It's one of my favorite topics to talk about, Dave, because I think it's underappreciated, the value of having a good team in place. I think critically for business owners, but I say for most clients, they should know who's on their team and identify any gaps on their team as well. So I just had clients that came to me and they're young business owners. They're thinking about succession planning sooner rather than later. And I was the first person that was brought into their team. And I said, whoa, 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 the attorney is not the first person that we need you to talk to. You need to talk to a wealth advisor first, and then you should talk to a tax advisor. And oh, yeah, we should know what the assets are worth. We need a business valuation person, an advisor, before we think about irrevocable trust planning, real sophisticated estate planning for you, because I couldn't, in good conscience, plan well for them if we didn't know what assets they have in their name, how are they going to be planned now and post liquidity event, what are the tax implications of that, what is something worth today, right? To know what it is worth to gift it away or to sell it away, as well as what's the upside here, right? What are we expecting maybe in 2 or 3 years? And I think a lot about planning for that multiple with my business clients for succession planning. One reason to start early, right, is you can do a lot under the hood with managing that. But unless you have a good team that helps manage that and really sets the client, sometimes the business owner, on a path, right, with, okay, every 3 months we're going to do a check-in. And each of those, maybe a different person on the team is going to lead the call, but others are going to be intimately involved in setting the agenda and talking through the implications for how it affects their portion of the client relationship. And I think that's just critically important so that everyone is rowing in the same direction, has alignment in what the client's goals are. If there's any changes to the plan, right, that we can communicate how that affects prior planning. So what are the tax implications of different estate planning? What are the tax implications for certain changes in the business that we're making? And how does that affect the business valuation? All of it works in synergy. And if you are disjointed in your advisor relationships, if your accountant isn't talking to your attorney, who isn't talking to your wealth or financial advisor, you're going to have gaps. There's going to be misconceptions. There's going to be dropped opportunities that someone that is better planned more cohesively is going to ultimately have more value created, a better aligned estate plan or succession plan, and ultimately just have a better wealth plan for them. And I'm trying to cultivate more relationships with trusted advisors so that I can be a call, right? If I can be a resource or of use to their clients or to them generally about estate planning and tax planning.
Yeah, I'm going to put an exclamation mark on that to the folks out there. You're paying those advisors to do their best work for you, and the only way they can do their best work is if they're all talking to one another. So, Brian, we talked at the beginning of the program that estate planning really is for everyone, and it shouldn't be scared by the word estate. But there may be some out there who still think they're not ready for estate planning. So, what's the one thing those listeners should do to protect the key people in their life, even if they don't think they're ready? Ready for the estate planning exercise.
So, not to take work away from myself, but a medical power of attorney and a financial power of attorney are mostly statutory. What does this mean? It means that most of the time you can find the form online for where you live, what state you live in, how to designate someone to make financial decisions for you and medical decisions for you. I think of that as table stakes, Dave, because even if you say, I have no assets, your asset is your body. And the autonomy for medical decision making is critical. I'm old enough to remember the Terry Schiavo case many, many years ago, right, where there was consideration and fights among the family for how to manage someone's body and their autonomy when they were in a coma and they couldn't make medical decisions for themselves. And they had to go to court. They had this whole publicity about the guardianship of them. And that's just not where you want to be, especially if you have to make medical decisions with time sensitivity, right? You don't want to have to waste time going to court, and you don't want to have to worry about who's going to contest and fight over your decision making. You want to lay that out. And so I say you can take work away from me. You can download those forms. You can complete them yourselves. That's table stakes. And I say someone as young as 18 should have them. Someone as old as 96, my 96, 98-year-old clients, they have them, and they continually review and make sure that they have the right person appointed in each of those roles and that they're comfortable if anything were to happen to them, that person stepping in to act for them. So if you do nothing else, find the relevant state forms for where you live, download them, complete them at your convenience, and put them in a safe place. Take it one step further, talk to the person that you've named in that role, make sure they're comfortable serving. They'll feel honored. They'll feel relieved, right, that you have a plan or a start of a plan. And then you can build from there to build up to those core estate planning documents. Next would be the will and revocable trust, right? As you determine that you have assets and you want to decide how to dispose of those assets, as well as appoint an executor, so that you don't have to go to court or your loved ones don't have to go to court. Similarly, when you die, to appoint an administrator. So give your family that peace of mind, give your loved ones that security that you have a start of a plan in place.
Yeah, and I know it can feel awkward to do that, and in some people's mind, may be morbid to do that. But having been through it with family members, I can tell you that number one, you're honoring their wishes, but number two, and selfishly, if you're that appointed person who's designated as the power of attorney for them, you don't have to speculate. You don't have to feel like you're making heroic assumptions. They've told you what they want you to do, so you're just honoring their wishes, and it does make it a lot easier. Brian, we're just about out of time here, and we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to give you a final word to either offer any other tips or hit any other points that maybe I didn't get to ask you in this conversation.
I think thinking critically about how we communicate is important. I'm just going to reiterate that the importance of communication, whether it's memorialized in an estate plan, whether it's memorialized in an operating agreement, shareholder agreement, you should have some communication with your loved ones and those that are part of your plan and part of your legacy. And I think the more that we have those conversations, the stronger our bonds will be with those that we love, the stronger our continuity will be with a business or with an estate plan. And if you need a wanted advisor to help you with that, I think it's critically important that you have a team of advisors that are in place to start those conversations that can each add value and that you scale, right? So I talk about starting the plan early, but it's something that's iterative in that you're constantly updating it as you have more information. And the plan should be put in a drawer and forgotten, but something that you take out every 3 to 5 years. You make sure that the individuals you've appointed are still the right individuals. You take out that valuation and say, wow, this is 3 years old. It's probably stale relative to the insurance that I've gotten on myself or the operating agreement that I have memorialized.
Yeah.
As well as, oh, I'm closer to thinking about an exit or succession. How does this valuation play a role in that? And getting an updated valuation can give you more options, give you more current information on what you can do with what you own, and help you be better planned and have better conversations with your advisors, with your loved ones.
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase it with an ironic little twist here, but the estate planning documents are living documents. Uh, Check in with them regularly. Brian, this has been an awesome conversation, and you've shared a ton of knowledge with our audience. Uh, Tell the folks out there who are listening how they can find you, connect with you, if they want to work with you.
So I say LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me. I share a lot of content on LinkedIn. Um, you can reach me at my first and last name, Brian Balduzzi. Search for me on LinkedIn. You can also send me an email at brian.balduzzi@fagerDrinker.com. And I'm happy to support you however I can in terms of estate planning or connecting you with others. I practice in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Florida, waving into South Dakota and DC. And if I don't practice in those states, maybe I know somebody that does practice in those states. And I think getting a team of advisors or getting good advice on your circumstance is a really good next step for you.
Yeah, and definitely check out Brian's LinkedIn profile. He is kind of prolific with his writing and his speaking. It seems like he's always out and about talking about this topic. I think he enjoys it. So definitely tune into that. He's quite good at doing that as well, as you can gather from the conversation here today. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Numbers. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
And thank you out there for tuning into Behind the Numbers. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. That actually really does move the needle, and it helps the show become more discoverable for future listeners who will hopefully appreciate the content as well. Also, don't forget to crush that subscribe button. You don't want to miss an episode. Until next time, I am Dave Bookbinder, reminding you that the numbers tell the story, but it's the people that bring it to life. Take care, everybody. We will see you next time.